Duelists are the main damage dealers in Marvel Rivals, and there's pretty much 3 different types of them. There's Dive, Brawl, and Poke, and characters are going to fall into 1 or 2 of those categories. In this video, we're going to talk about the Poke style Duelists, those with ranged attacks that don't require you to be in melee. And we're going to be giving you a tier list of these characters for new players. As you progress through the ranks, the tiers of the different characters is going to shift around quite drastically. As you get better and better at the game, different characters move around in how effective that they are. First up, we've got Black Widow. Black Widow in all tiers of play struggles quite significantly. She's just outmatched by the other Poke style characters in the game. Regardless of tier, Black Widow probably is never going to be the right choice to choose, which means that she can never push beyond C tier. But she's going to be extra bad for new players that aren't able to get reliable headshots as this character. Overall, Black Widow is probably one of the worst picks that you can pick in the game, and she's just not a good reliable option in the Season 0. Next up is Hawkeye. Hawkeye's pretty interesting. At the top tiers of play, he is absolutely dominating because of his ability to one-shot headshot targets and how accurate players are with his one-shot mechanic. Hawkeye is absolutely dominating at those ranks. Where most characters that require some accuracy will drop down in usefulness in the low tiers of play, Hawkeye doesn't really do that, and that's just because of how much damage his arrows do, the fact that he never has to reload, and how large the headshot hitbox is. You're going to find that no matter what tier you're playing at, Hawkeye is going to be dominating. There's a very small skill sliver of area where Hawkeye players haven't gotten accurate enough to be completely dominating, and enemy dive players have gotten effective enough to be able to take him out before he can do too much, but that doesn't last particularly long. Overall, Hawkeye is an S tier character and remains that way all throughout all levels of play. Hela. Hela does require accuracy, and more so than Hawkeye. But she's also hit scan, which means that as long as your reticle's on a target, you do deal damage to them. And again, the hitboxes are rather large, so you are going to find yourself having some decent shots as this character. But she's not as oppressive as Hawkeye in the lower ranks. You're never going to have players instantly dying to Hela at the low ranks due to fluke shots flying out that had no particular purpose. Hela requires better positioning and more reliable follow-up than Hawkeye, so in low tier lobbies, she's probably closer to a B tier option. She does have really good damage, but you're unlikely to be using her stun, right click, or mobility options effectively at the lowest ranks of play. She'll quickly jump up to S tier once you get to around gold, but for now, we're leaving her in B. Iron Man. Iron Man's a little bit of a roller coaster. Iron Man is quite the roller coaster. He moves around the tier list drastically as you move from skill level to skill level. At the lowest skills, he's practically useless. He's not able to flank effectively, and he's going to be just using his primary fire, which is slow and inaccurate. He's also never going to be in line of sight of his healers and often taken out quite quickly. But he will move up a decent amount pretty early on as he starts to get some mobility understanding and starts to understand how to use his beam attack. I would say, similar to Hela, Iron Man ends up being around a B tier option. Once players get a modicum of accuracy, Iron Man will drop down to the D tier, and then at the top tiers of play, he'll skyrocket all the way up to the top. But for beginners, B-roll is definitely where Iron Man belongs. Moon Knight. Moon Knight's extremely oppressive in low skill lobbies. Players in this rank are really bad about taking out extra objects, and Moon Knight's onks are going to be absolutely dominating. Because of his lower need for accuracy and the amount of damage that he can dish out into a team fight, Moon Knight is dominating in low ranks. And this doesn't go away for quite some time. He doesn't really fall off out of the ranks until players get quite a bit of skill. So if you want to be dominating your early game lobbies, Moon Knight is an excellent pick, and I'm going to probably put him up at S tier. Low skill players probably aren't utilizing his full kit, but the basics of his kit are strong enough to make him dominate early game. Neore. Far more than Hela or Hawkeye, Neore struggles when accuracy is low. However, his squids are extremely powerful. They auto-hit and do quite a bit of damage if they're never taken out, and again, low-tier lobbies just don't take out these kinds of things. The struggle you're going to have with Neore in low-skill lobbies is the fact that you're not really going to get any kills. Nemore's going to do quite a decent amount of damage from his squids, but most of that damage is just going to be healed off by the enemy healers, and you're not accurate enough with his spears to be able to take out a target. Neore cannot one-shot anybody, and in fact takes 2 to 3 hits to be able to kill a target with him. With his slow rate of fire, it's extremely unlikely you're going to get all 3 hits off to kill a target before they get any healing, and the use of his ultimate is pretty difficult. I think in low tier, Neore sits at the C ranks. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is great in early game lobbies. Her basic attack cannot miss as long as players stay within the range, and it has a decent amount of movement. Her ability to go invisible and move around means low tier players are going to lose track of her quite easily, and her ultimate will wipe out entire teams of players that aren't good at reacting quickly. Early game Scarlet Witch is definitely an S tier character that's hard for enemies to deal with and will be quite oppressive. Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl is another character where accuracy isn't extremely important. Her bouncing attacks and wide hitboxes means that she is doing quite a bit of damage. Squirrel Girls will often find themselves pretty easily just sitting in the back lobbing out shots and doing decent chunks of damage. In low tiers, they often have high kill rates because the high amount of damage they deal and constant attacks that come from them while they're not being punished at all is going to result in them having big impacts on the game. Squirrel Girl's kit is not complicated, and overall she's a pretty reliable character. I'm going to probably say that in low ranks she is A tier. StarLord. StarLord is a high mobility and high damage output character that requires really good tracking. Low tier StarLords often get themselves into the enemy team and get wiped out quite quickly because they don't know how to move effectively. But this does change relatively early on as they start to learn how to dodge and dive, and players' accuracy levels are quite low. The amount of spray and pray that he can do at the lower tiers is still effective at these lobbies, as players are going to be struggling to land regular hits. His ultimate giving you auto aim, as well as his E ability doing a big AoE of damage that players cannot avoid while he stays relatively mobile, does end up making StarLord sit into the A tiers of play. Storm. Nearly every player plays Storm incorrectly, and new players are extremely likely to be doing this. New player Storms are going to be sitting a mile away from everyone, shooting out the slowest attack in the game and doing minor damage, and they're almost never going to be using her auras to their full effect. Players constantly make the mistake when playing Storm of not understanding that she is a teamfight brawler and she is not meant to be a long-range poke. Her damage output is not high if she's not hitting multiple targets and using her piercing damage and AoE electrocution aura. So in low tier play and in most play, Storm is the bottom of D tier and just cannot be used effectively. The Punisher. In low tier play, Punisher is played exclusively as a long range style character, but he is still very effective in that role. His turret, ultimate, and rifle are all very powerful abilities. He's easy to learn, and he can always do a little bit of damage. The fact that he's hit scan does mean that his spray and pray often ends up dealing some damage, and low tier enemies are not good at dealing with his turret at all. Overall, the Punisher is definitely the best character for low tier players to pick up and learn because he teaches you everything that you need to be a ranged player. Anybody playing should really be picking up characters in the B, A, or S tiers as they're learning the beginnings of the game. Now, as you get deeper into it, the game becomes more complicated and players become better. There are some significant shakeups that occur in this tier list. Punisher drops down to be more of an A tier, Squirrel Girl drops into C, Scarlet Witch catapults down into the D tiers, probably even lower than Storm. Black Widow bumps up to a C tier option, Iron Man and Hela both jump into S tiers, Moon Knight drops down to B, and Namor jumps up to the top of A. Once you get skilled to the game, these are the characters that you're really going to be watching out for and needing to learn how to deal with, where the characters at the bottom of the ranks are going to be easily wiped out by players at that skill level. I hope this tier list helps you understand who to pick up and how to get into the earlier tiers of play and begin to learn and climb up the ranks in Marvel Rivals. Next time, we're going to talk about the dive style and brawl style characters, those that focus on melee attacks. Sazaze.